The makers of Lucky Charms have launched a new contest giving away 10,000 boxes of the cereal that contains only marshmallows. America, we're not even pretending anymore. The Trump Report starts now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, that's right. Where else can you go and get political talk? One week you get Megadeth, the next week you get Milli Vanilli. It's the Trump Report right here at AfterBuzz TV. Welcome to the Trump Report. I'm Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ. At a very special early time for those of you watching live. For the rest of you, it doesn't seem any different than any other episode because I'm joined as always by Chelsea Galicia.
Hi there.
And joined as usual by Scott Moore, who apparently won't be here next week, but that's all right. At SMan80. He's next week you're off to Alaska. Mm-hmm. Are you going to visit Sarah Palin or Todd Palin? Which one first?
Bristol.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I feel like you should at least meet with Sarah first. You can let us know at the end of the show if you want to check your schedule.
I have to check and look and see.
Anyway, I thought this was a fun bad song to start with because Jared Kushner to the Russians, baby, don't forget my number. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I also should let you know that we have our own Twitter, the Trump Report. The uptick that we had of followers has leveled off a little bit. So follow us at Trump Report ABTV. Come on. If you're on Twitter right now, join us. And for those of you in the chat, Steve, you'll put the chat up so we can read it. We'll see what everybody's saying. And people are wondering, why are you here so early? Because it's my wife's birthday. Happy birthday. She's at work. She's not really watching. But I feel like I should wish her a happy birthday for when she sees it later. Anyway, all that out of the way. Jared Kushner. That's, there's a lot of things that we could have let off with. But this is kind of, what's the word? Criminal? No, interesting. That he wanted a direct line between Moscow and the Trump transition team. Chelsea, when you heard that, were you surprised?
No.
Not even at the flagrant disregard for any, trying to keep things a little, just so blatantly like, yeah, we want to have like basically the bat phone, like the old Batman show. Commissioner Gordon's office just starts blinking.
Okay, well, in all fairness, I'm not quite sure I am capable of surprise any longer. It may be an emotion that has completely washed itself from me because I've just expressed it too many times that I just ran out.
Okay, well, we're going to isolate you saying that.
My allotment in life of surprise.
We're going to isolate you saying that, and there'll be a show probably 3-4 weeks from now where you'll be so surprised, something that we have no idea what's coming now. You'll be like, you know what? I didn't think I could be surprised.
Maybe my surprise is in hibernation.
Yeah.
It's restoring itself. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, fun. I mean, it was like, this should be interesting. And now it's only going to be interesting to people. I think, in my mind, I try and put myself in the mind of Trump supporters, which is a very scary place. It's not the one that I recommend. But in this vein of trying to understand what they're thinking, I'm thinking, how does this land for a Trump supporter? And for a Trump supporter, I think, maybe I'd like to hear it, maybe if Storage Yard residents around, they would think, well, what Trump's son does is not what Trump does. And if Trump's son is
this
doing
is his son-in-law.
Son-in-law is doing something.
This isn't even Don Jr. or Eric.
So unless the president directed him to do this and knew that it was illegal, because I think that there are a lot of Trump supporters who are like, if Trump didn't know it was illegal, then you can't really fault him for it, because this is his first time being president and his first time in politics, and therefore we have to understand that there's going to be a learning curve, and this was during the transition time. So at that point, how could you have ever expected that he would know all the laws that would prohibit you from creating back channels with foreign countries? I mean, that's just expecting way too much.
So from that explanation, sounds like you're in favor of it.
I mean, close.
Close to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly not a good idea, but I am just starting to think that as much as I think, oh my gosh, look at that. That's got to bring him down. That's got to get everybody in the whole country to think, oh my God, this is just obscene. Cross the line. I mean, the line is a mile back. And everybody will agree, like, this is just too far. And then I think to myself, well, actually, let me think of all the reasons why it's not too far. What are all the justifications going to be for people that support Trump and believe in him? And I think they're going to think, well, This is his son-in-law doing what his son-in-law thinks is best for the country, and they just didn't know it was illegal. And who knows if it actually happened? This could be fake news. And if the president didn't direct him, then it's not really the president's fault. And if the president did direct him, well, we can't expect the president to know all the laws before he's even taken the oath of office.
And as you said, this is President Trump's son-in-law, or as he thinks of him, some loser who married my smoking hot daughter. So that is Jared Kushner. Scott, when you heard this, shock, surprise, or yawn?
Yeah, again, sort of like Chelsea was saying, nothing really surprises me anymore. And you're saying exactly sort of what Kellyanne Conway tried to pitch back to the press.
God, and I didn't even hear it.
Which was basically the same thing as like that, back channel stuff is completely legal, and we've done it in the past. Yes, we have, but in different capacities, and we did with the Soviets to help cool off some of the tension with the Cold War era, but not during a transition period. And this was a totally separate thing that happened. But sort of what you're saying, it's they're naive, they don't know all the rules, and if they were setting this up, it might have been done without the president's direct approval.
Wow, I have really gotten this into Trump supporter
exactly, you've gotten in their head
to a dangerous level of competence here.
And also what you're saying too, it's like nothing else seems to have brought Trump down at all. What is that thing that's going to finally get people to realize enough is enough? It's like it didn't matter that he had all these conflicts of interest with all of his businesses.
I'm really frightened that Kellyanne Conway and I think alike now.
And his bankruptcies. It didn't matter, what he called women. It didn't matter what he did throughout the campaign. Nothing seems to matter. So this is just one other thing that people are going to either say, or like Trump supporters are going to be like, okay, this is the left media trying to push back because they can't accept Hillary Clinton's loss, and that's like a lot of people are also saying is like they can't let it go.
I've heard that a little bit. Yeah.
And this is all, this is her, left-wing press that's now trying to bring him down any way they can. But either way, it does not look good that someone in that direct orbit of Trump, his son-in-law, who basically runs everything right now, is so closely and directly tied to this investigation. It does not help Trump at all, of course, because before it was people a little bit further out from his orbit, but he's right there. He's right in the middle of everything. So if Jared is brought down, that really is one half step away from Donald Trump himself.
Well, to Chelsea's point, it answers the question: if Kellyanne Conway is alone in the woods and she tries to spin a story, does it make a sound? No, it does not, apparently, because she didn't hear it. And then the other point is, like you said, if there were some proof that Trump said, what we need? We need to have a number where Russia can get in touch with us. But I don't know that would actually be illegal. I don't know that would be huge. That would be able to make this a bigger story. But the way things have gone, he could have been on that Access Hollywood bus with Billy Bush, said, hang on, Billy, I have to take a call. Oh, it's my son. Yeah, what, if we're ever president, let's go ahead and set up. That could have been on that tape, and it still wouldn't have mattered.
And shot a few people on Fifth Avenue as the bus was driving down. And still been elected, apparently, at this point.
In the chat, our friend Jason Blair, who is very happy about the early hour, he has triplets, so he's actually able to focus at this time of day. He said that there has been a lot of crying wolf, so at this point you hear this story, and then there's a lot of yawn that I alluded to.
At the same point, while I say I can't be surprised by anything anymore, this still should, all of us should take a second and think, this, if true, is wrong, and not get so normalized that this is just whatever.
And that's okay, and make the excuse that they're naive, so it's okay that they can do whatever they want.
Whether you think it's going to bring anybody down or be this huge, deep throat moment like with Watergate, if you think it's not going to have anything, it's still something that you think like, oh, I don't think that's good. But that's up to the individual to decide, and there's a lot of chatting about it there. Right. Jared's dad was in jail for money laundering. No, says Bruce Lee.
Well, that was his dad. His father was. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Is he still there?
I think he's out now.
I feel like that would be counselor. I feel like that would be inadmissible in court. I don't know what relevance that has to him wanting to be nice.
It doesn't, but it just shows sort of what kind of things they're involved with. Going back to the China, with the visas and the special visas, if Chinese were going to donate over $500,000 or whatever it was to his, to the again, all these conflicts of interest that his family was involved with. If you kick in enough money, you can get the special visa to come over to the States. So it's just a lot of other shadier things. So it just adds to the layers of like, okay, he's probably involved in a lot of not so
So Jason's also
Kosher
mentioning
things, you know.
that it's probably not nefarious. It was like, oh, I didn't know. So I hope that there's a bipartisan Presidential Competence Act that's being at least drafted right now so that we can vote on what is the minimum level of competence that we're going to require from presidents here on out.
You know what they should do? I mean, here to be a host at AfterBuzz, you have to go to a few seminars and take some
Right.
classes. There should be, you get together with some former presidents.
Presidenting 101.
And look, maybe the presidents are too busy, so
You've
what
got
you
to
can
release
do...
your mental health records
and your tax records.
and your tax records,
Well,
Yes.
your professional, ties to other countries, and and you have to pass a basic civics and
basic
I think
civics,
that's
absolutely.
probably valid. What you could do, though, for the courses I'm talking about, you could take the Hall of Presidents at Disney World and just program them like, this is how you act presidential. Because I think former presidents, they get to take it easy. They're kind of busy. So let's have some animatronic former presidents tell you how to do the job.
The hypocrisy just is so painfully loud to me of this is a law and order administration unless you don't know what the law is, but none of the rest of us get to claim ignorance and get away with it. So it's just obnoxious that they are so cracking down on everybody being law-abiding except them. And I don't know if they know this, but that doesn't work. When you tell the kids to follow the rules and you yourself don't, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence and in your kids, in you, and also in their desire to want to follow the rules. So he's actually an example in bending the rules, working around the rules, ignoring the rules, keeping yourself ignorant of the rules, and seeing all the good that can come of it.
Well, a lot of good has come for it from President Trump, but as he comes back from the big world tour, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we've been talking in the past few weeks about who's the next one out of the administration. I don't think anybody had Michael Dubke in the hat, so we'll still have to check the leaderboard at the end of the show, see who's in the running. So he resigns as White House Communications Director. But you have to feel like, all right, that's not going to make Trump happy if he wants a house cleaning. Does he even know who this guy is? I don't know if I did.
Well, so I understand was he the one that did the whole when the reporter was asking about Trump's falling in the polls and he was like, says who was that this guy?
No, I think
I can't remember
that was
because in preparation for the show we were going to talk about Dubke and also Michael Cohen, and so now I may be crossing my wires on who each of them are. Dubke.
Yeah, he was only there for like 2.5 months. He only started in the beginning of March, so he wasn't even there that long.
Yeah, and he hadn't been a part of the transition team or the campaign, so he had, as I understand it, a hard time sort of finding friends in the administration.
Clearly, because he's not there anymore. Yeah, it's everybody else seems to find friends within there. But the bigger question is, there has to be somebody who's next, right? I mean, this guy,
before he came along, Sean Spicer did this job Sean Spicer is doing plus this guy's job. So I wonder for the time being if Sean Spicer's going to go back to having both gigs, and then Sean Spicer will crack under the pressure of that.
I don't know.
Or maybe just transition him into that job and let somebody else be press secretary.
Huckabee.
Okay. Who knows? But they have been alluding to that, is that he's going to come back and clean house, including Sean Spicer and even chief of staff with Priebus. So
I mean, who wants that job? I mean I think he got a lot of flack for not coming out in defense of Trump with the Comey firing and not being sort of on message. I'm not even sure they had a coherent message about what they wanted to tell the public about how it happened and why. So I mean that just I don't know. I don't know of anybody in their reasonable mind that would want to sign up for that gig.
Well, and you got to think of people like Spicer and Priebus. They've had the job now. It's a line on the resume, probably 2 lines. So, they're ready to move on, I would bet. I mean, Sean Spicer, he couldn't possibly be having fun. And I know it's not supposed to be a fun job, but it also shouldn't be
it should be
soul-crushing.
fulfilling.
Right.
You should
Maybe,
believe in what
hopefully.
you're doing, and you sort of get the feeling that that's not where he's at, Do you think he wants Melissa McCarthy on TV making fun of him?
No, apparently he is not like that
Apparently he's
at
not
all.
a fan. Yeah, exactly.
But who would be? I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know if it was funny enough. I would
you
be
enjoy
pretty
that?
upset. Yeah.
Oh.
But she's very funny.
She's
on that.
so good.
Yeah. Anyway, and so then of course this does bring up Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. He's like, I'm not helping out Congress. They can investigate whatever they want. And the point is, he doesn't have to. You know,
Well,
I mean,
at this point.
at this point, yeah.
this point,
if they need him to talk, we have ways of making you talk, Mr. Cohen.
Called a subpoena.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a request, so you can sign up or not. But he's declined to sign up for he's called it a fishing expedition. He's called it I don't know, just a whole bunch of the same thing that you hear over and over. There's nothing going on. This is all made up.
And that's the thing that's so frustrating, is that if there really wasn't anything going on, then why not say, here you go.
That's what Trump would be tweeting if this was Obama.
Exactly, and that's
his people.
the biggest problem I have with this scandal. I'll put it there because that's what he thinks it is, with fake news and everything. Is why are they not more forthcoming then and be very transparent? Be like, you know what, guys, I'm going to prove you wrong right now. We're going to release everything that you want. We're going to be transparent to show that it's fake and that there's nothing there. And the fact that they push back makes it worse, just like the tax. Not releasing your taxes makes it worse,
too. If I'm
too.
Michael Cohen, I don't want to be out in front either, because when you read about who this guy is and what he's done, he's like a mini Trump. Like, he had a boat casino
he has a lot
that
of
went under
deals.
and really screwed over a lot of the little guys that, tried to have jobs and contracts and stuff with. He's
But that's the
basically
point.
like Trump.
Like, they are, where there's smoke, there's fire. And the fact that they're being so reluctant, I know he's got a lot of dirty laundry there too, but
a lot of
it
Ukrainian ties.
Yeah,
as
just
I
leads you
understand
to
it.
believe that there are a lot of issues and a lot of this stuff is true. Otherwise, you'd be more forthcoming and be like, I want to get this, move past this. Because again, they feel like it's going to go away, and it's not. Just like the tax stuff is never going to go away. That's always going to be back there and haunting Trump in the back, because it's never going away. And those type of things, the fact that you're hiding and pushing back makes it seem like you're guilty.
Right, I mean,
that's all there is to it.
The way that the tax return thing would go away is to release them. But
Right.
even if they come out and there's nothing in there of note, it's still like, yeah, but then why?
Right.
What else is there? So it's there's no win at that point. And yeah, I think, you know what? Here's everything you're asking for. Here's some extra things that you might ask for one
later.
day. And here's some stuff you're definitely not interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, a lawyer knows better, and that's what
course.
Jason is saying, is that a lawyer is not going to sign themselves up to
course.
talk, because when you're innocent, what do you have to hide?
Exactly.
Lawyers know that that's not a good approach, and so he's, of course, not going to sign up for this. But I do think it was interesting that they offered for him to sign up on his own accord to request it, and then when he doesn't, they're going to subpoena probably business records, because we've learned from Flynn and company that if you just ask them to personally testify, that they can just assert their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, but you can't do that related to your business, because a business does not have that right.
Well, as we say about so many things, I guess we're going to have to keep our eyes on that and see where it goes. Sometimes we'll take requests from the chat, and Jason pointed out, Jason Blair, who's very active today, which we'd like to see. He pointed out that there was a story, I guess this was on the Drudge Report, it was linked to a news article, that there's a PAC gearing up for a Hillary Clinton 2020 presidential run, and he said, please, yes, let this happen. I understand his sentiment, because I think that would be a fairly surefire way to kind of get the same result that we got 4 years ago, is for her, an older, a little bit more beaten down Hillary to run again against President Trump.
This is a different PAC from the one that she is starting to help support other groups that are training.
I think this is in reference specifically to one for her to run for president.
I had not heard
so
that.
It's more of a general question of,
I've heard of that, but
it sounds like a terrible idea at this point.
No, it's sort of like any of the previous, and also I'm going to bring back his point about the tax returns, because actually people do care about it. More than 60-something% of voters still want him to release his tax returns.
Right.
So that includes a lot of Trump voters.
And if they came out, probably a lot less people would care about them,
the
but
fact
they care
is,
because
they
they're not
do,
there.
and other states are actually looking into making it a requirement to appear on the ballot in those states that you must release your tax returns. So it is something that's not going to go away. But to go back to the Hillary Clinton thing, it goes back to previous, and we just don't have as much in the modern era, but you had candidates like Adlai Stevenson that ran twice against Eisenhower. You had William Jennings Bryan that ran 3 times for president and each time lost. So it would be unprecedented to have someone come back after they lost in modern times and try to run again. It's never really worked very well.
No, I mean,
except for Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon's the only one.
And Richard Nixon had Roger Ailes explain how TV worked.
That's the only one where that came back and worked.
I'm so sorry, but you saying Roger Ailes, different name, but have you seen the Netflix documentary called Get Me Roger Stone?
I need to watch that still.
Oh, no. Did you tell us? Or
yes.
I did.
Or did Brooke tell us? Are you
don't know.
confusing our
No,
female co-host?
no, we were
I think
talking
Brooke
about
told
it.
us to watch it.
Brooke
Was
told
it
us, but I
last
think we
week?
were
I think,
talking
or
about it
maybe
too.
I saw it the week
Anyway,
before.
I've heard of
Yes.
it from
I need
one
to
of
watch
you,
it.
and I still haven't seen it.
Okay.
Brooke did mention it, and I do need to watch it, but I know we've talked about it too.
Well, maybe on your flight to Alaska, you can watch it.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Or you can sit down and watch it with Sarah and Todd
Right.
Palin.
Yes.
Just a thought. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the point when it comes down to Jason's question, Hillary Clinton running again, what else you got? You know, we've seen that, you know, and I don't know.
I don't even think Trump's running again, so.
Well,
Let's go.
you know,
So-
if the opposition is Hillary, and even if he was thinking like, oh, I don't know if I can win. Oh, Hillary, well, clearly I can beat her because I have. So, yeah, I think that's the answer to Jason's question.
Yeah,
That,
thinks it would be.
there should be somebody else.
I think
there
I'm
will
going to
be.
start a
Democrats
PAC
are not
for
going to.
Oprah. Do you think that would encourage her to run?
If you just would have, hey, it's all set up for you, Oprah. Now you just have to walk right in and.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna joke about that because I don't want to put more pressure on that woman. She's got enough.
I wonder
that she's dealing with
I wonder
in
how
life.
much money Stedman would put in that to get her out of the house. Anyway,
Now,
no,
Christian.
I know
Or-
Stedman's
like-
a national treasure. I'm just kidding.
Or Gail.
Or,
How much would she put up her salary
that's
there?
your question. That was Scott Moore at S-Man80. If you have any criticisms, you tweet at him. Anyway, so back
I wouldn't
to...
mess with Scott. Scott's got some really good
Yeah,
tweet
you know what?
firepower.
We still haven't done that segment where is it Mitch McConnell?
Yes,
yeah.
and
So
Trump, where I troll
well, you're
them.
not going to be here next week, but I'm going to make a note that we'll have you read some selected
Yes.
tweets. Do you do it every morning? You antagonize
Pretty much.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell and then Trump now too.
Yeah. See, that's
Pretty much Mitch McConnell every
and that's
day.
why everyone watching should be following
They
at
should be.
S-Man80. I don't do anything
We're gonna
anywhere
have
near as
children
interesting
read
as
them.
Yeah,
That's we can
Your
get
son.
Brooks. Well, my son doesn't read well, but Brooks' daughter could.
He's 2 and
Yeah.
he still doesn't read well. What is this?
He knows the
Come
letter
on.
E when he sees it.
Aw.
So, you know, it's a start. Anyway, so President Trump had the big overseas trip. He was in the middle of it when we did the show last week. And I thought that we could, you know, use the picture of him with the Pope, but I think everybody saw it at this point.
So funny.
It was just like one of those ones where it's like, all right, now you're going to take a picture with your aunt and uncle whom you've never met. You know, when you were like a little kid and there's a family photo this is what I should have pulled now that I think about it. It's my mom, my brother and sister and I in front of church on Easter, and all of us, including my mom, no one is even remotely happy in this photo. And it's like, oh, that's like the Pope picture. And then there was another picture that the Pope took, I think it was yesterday or today, where he met with Justin Trudeau, and somebody else coined this phrase, I can't take credit for it, is that Trudeau also got the quote-unquote resting Pope face. That's just who
Pope
he
face.
is. But there's just something so unphotogenic about, you know, you meet with this guy, and he seems like, and this is the friendly Pope, and yet he you know, this is like the Pope that's for the kids. And, you know, it just I don't know, I was more scared of him after that photo. Like, Trump was not the scariest person in that photo.
I have respect for the Pope.
Sure.
He'll not be,
Yeah.
you know, just he doesn't like pictures, perhaps, or doesn't want to seem like he's enamored with these world leaders. These world leaders should be enamored with him, I think,
Exactly.
and rather than the other way around, you know.
Well, it was funny because they did try to show the ones where he was smiling with Obama and some of the previous ones, but then when the Trudeau one came out, because I would have been like, okay, if he was smiling with Trudeau, then that's clearly.
I mean, and
he didn't wanna be
Trudeau's so
anywhere near-
handsome, you should just
anywhere
smile
near-
being in the same room as
anywhere
him.
near Trump, because he did look so sour, and all the stuff to come out from that was so hilarious, though.
Yeah, people got a lot of mileage.
They did a
out of
Curb
it.
Your Enthusiasm one there that just made me laugh every single
maybe-
time.
I didn't see that one. I
Yes,
want to see that, but I
it's
did
so
see was it
funny.
the Addams Family
the Addams
one?
Family,
And maybe the
twins.
maybe
from
the Pope
The
just
Shining.
is just like, I don't know. I'm okay with people that have one divorce. I don't want to talk to somebody that's two. But then it was the same way with Justin Trudeau. So it sort of
I know,
poked a hole in my whole theory.
It did, me too, because the ones with Obama, he was like smiling.
But
and
I'm going to assume everybody has seen those photos, so
Yeah.
make sure that you have, if for some reason you haven't. We'll tweet them from @TrumpReportABTV. How about that? Try to get people to follow. We'll see if it works. President Trump also very worried about the trade deficit with Germany. You can be worried about that, but not enough where you say it out loud. I mean, I don't know. Shouldn't there be a lot of much bigger concern? And I'm talking about just in terms of trade deficits. Is Germany really the problem, not, I don't know, China or Mexico? He talks about NAFTA all the time. So he just doesn't like any kind of trade, free or otherwise. Is that what it comes down to? What do you think, Scott?
Well, you know, again, it goes back to the fact that he's kinder to the Russians, which again raises those red flags than your own, you know, NATO, EU supporters like Germany and France and other places where it's very upsetting to see that kind of behavior, because it does raise the rest of, and they've been saying that the leader of the free world is really now Merkel and not Trump, and it's sad, and because the rest of the world is now laughing at us, just the fact of the type of leadership we have right now.
Yeah, but I mean, they've laughed at us before.
No, they have
in this century, you know. So
yes,
I mean,
but even more so now, and then to be able to kind of pick fights with Germany is not helpful at all.
Well, historically, that doesn't usually go well. I mean, sure, you know, they didn't win either of the world wars, but it goes on for a long time. A lot of people die. So I don't know. Just leave Germany alone. Let them do their thing and have their terrible music. But
they have a very very strong economy, and they basically have the biggest economy in Europe. So it's not the one that you want to really play around with and you know, ruin that relationship. And it's sad. It really is that he would think to make comments like that really don't serve any purpose.
You know, when you referenced red flags, I thought of two things. I thought of the old Soviet flag, that's you know, mostly a red flag with the hammer and sickle, and then I thought of the Chinese flag, and it's like, wait a minute, you're onto something with red flags. So we'll put Alex Jones on that. He's always very interested in false flags and red flags and all sorts of things. So another thing that happened during the trip was a very awkward handshake with Macron.
Shall we show what it looked like?
Yes, let's use the wide, Steve. Thanks.
Almost, or I was like, somebody was going to try like pulling the other one.
And for our iTunes listeners, it was very forceful. Just imagine an arm wrestling match with Chelsea that I lost.
Yeah.
That's basically what it looked like. But, I mean, Macron, he said that there was indeed a deeper significance to the prolonged handshake that he shared with Donald Trump in Brussels. They just were both saying to the other, like, you're not better than me? I mean, how did you read that? I mean, as fun as it was for us to recreate it.
I think the one who pulls away perhaps is perceived as the weaker one, and so that neither one of them wanted to end the shake, the stare down. It's like, I'm in this and I can, you know, stare at you long enough that you're going to be the one that blinks and pulls away because you're awkward, timid, and afraid. I don't know, but maybe I'm the wrong one. Maybe there was some male dynamics going on that I don't understand.
I mean, I don't know, Scott. I think to some extent it's that, but it's also, you know, like, you know, we're the United States, you're France. You know, I'm going to have the better handshake. I mean, I think that it actually did have a lot less to do with the country. I think it was more about the two men involved in the handshake, wouldn't you say, Scott?
Yeah, no, I think it was about the two men involved, and I think we also saw that too when he went and avoided Trump and swerved over when they first met and went to Merkel first and went down the line, and Trump was like 7th. And I think that sort of started it. And I also think it's Macron's way of saying, I'm not also going to put up with your crap, essentially. You know, I think it's another sign that people aren't buying what Trump is trying to sell in its most basic form. And so I think it was the same thing. They're both trying to show that they have the upper hand But and Trump's known for his awkward handshakes too. I mean, there was that whole thing on John Oliver, the whole segment about him with the handshake and the pull and the awkward. It's very awkward the way he shakes hands.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been involved in awkward handshakes, you know, that go on way too long, or they're really forceful, like, I'm going to break your hand, and then you're like, oh, okay, I can't ease up. I'm involved in some test that I didn't realize. You know, this is apparently some kind of match that I was not prepared for, but, you know, I'll just keep shaking.
You're like,
it just makes for
like,
it just, you
going
know,
on here?
as with so
Can I
many
have my
things, it
hand
just
back?
makes for such weird optics, you know, and like also Trump pushing his way to the front so that he could be standing in the front row.
That was I actually was embarrassed.
I was too. That was just like,
but
really?
that can't be the only. I mean, you
I was
probably are
embarrassed on the whole
routinely
trip
embarrassed,
by
that,
him,
that
but
stood out.
I mean, I mean, you push somebody aside. It's like, that is cringeworthy.
Yeah, it was gross.
But see, you know what? If I was again, I think of all these ideas during the show. It's like we could have recreated that at the top of the show. Oh well, you know. Anyway, so more international relations. The White House is about to, or at least they're planning to, reverse President Obama's policies on Cuba.
We better go to Cuba.
I know. I
as
have
soon as you
3
get back from
shows,
Alaska.
and I have 3 shows that are supposed to go down there this season. So it'll be interesting to see how
Interesting to
that's
see
gonna work.
if there's any
more
paperwork.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely understand the long held belief that Cuba is not our friend, is not anybody's friend. When you have people like Marco Rubio that sort of chime in and go like, yeah, I don't think we should have good relations with the Castro brothers. I understand while Fidel Castro was ruling, and his brother Raul is, it's not like, oh, he's the nice one. He's not
Fidel Light. Yeah.
He's the Jeb Bush, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just kidding. Nobody take that
I know.
seriously. He's not. I'm not saying Jeb Bush is Raul Castro. He's only had a couple people killed. Again, just a joke. But I don't know. I mean, I think the idea for the Cuban people that actually are, I was going to say that live there, that are trapped there, that I think that it was probably something that could have helped their country, in terms of sort of opening it up and, some tourism dollars. Not that they don't get it from countries like Canada already.
Based on the tourists that show up on my Facebook feed, people seem to...
Oh, you just go to Mexico and you don't get your passport stamped. Or I guess you can do it from Canada too, but it's easier
it's
for
easier
Mexico.
for Mexico.
No, but what I was getting at is it doesn't seem that people are trapped based on what the friends on my Facebook are showing about their trips to Cuba.
I guess it depends on where you go. I mean, still every year you hear about a number of athletes defecting, and people, maybe it's just that they want to make more money pitching for Major League Baseball than for the Cuban League. But at the same time, the fact that they could make money at all, but
one thing that I read is that he was thinking about reversing the wet foot, dry foot policy that Obama got rid of right before he left office, which I could understand, but it's just kind of opposite of what Trump's saying, like no more immigrants and everything. And if you reinstate the wet foot, dry foot policy, basically, if they land on dry land, they get to stay in the country. So, and if they are caught in the open waters, they're sent back to Cuba. And that was Obama did that. One of the last few things he did before he left office was remove that policy. So essentially, even if Cubans were to step foot on dry land, they were sent back to Cuba. So it seems odd that he'd be changing that, but again, it's to appease the hardliners in South Florida that still feel like, well, we need to do something against this dictatorship. But the problem is it has not worked. We've had this embargo since the early 1960s. It has not worked clearly. So why do we feel like continuing this on is going to somehow make a difference? It's like, again, being with the whole thing about you saying if you're crazy because you keep doing the same thing and thinking there's going to be different results. This is crazy. We know this policy doesn't work, but having open engagement is going to help open up the world to more everyday citizens in Cuba, and would help potentially open them up to more freedoms, not by blocking them, because by blocking them out, you make it easier for the dictatorship to be able to say, oh, we're not getting money, we're not doing this because the U.S. is bad. And they're gonna button down and have the dissidents and everything else. It doesn't help in opening up anything. So by them trying to go back to, and again, that's a Republican standard going back. But the problem is a lot of those hardliners in South Florida, a lot of those Cubans that came over in the 60s and 70s are dying off now, and it's the same sort of thing that's happening with a lot of other people. Is now their children and people that are now growing up in South Florida are now more open to having more freedoms for them to communicate and travel back and forth to their homeland and to their relatives that are still left behind in Cuba. And they're also becoming more liberal voters as well, and they're not so entrenched with the GOP. So again, we're staying with old things that don't work.
This is more of a devil's advocate question, but is it more that they're more open to it, these younger generations? They just don't know any better. They don't know how brutal it was. And it's worth making sure that people understand why we have this relationship with Cuba.
We understand, and we know that there things are going on, but it's still, again, it's hard to say that when you're going to have an open trade with with China, who's got a communist government. We have normalized relationships with Vietnam.
We just sold Saudi Arabia,
right? And
Vietnam, exactly, crap ton of weapons, and they kind of hate us most. Remember 9/11? Most of the hijackers.
Well, and also the women in the press corps weren't able to cover a lot of events when they were just there. But
I'm just saying, to communist countries, we were saying there's human rights issues, and you could do that with China, and it's okay since the 70s. You can normalize relationships with Vietnam since '95, and that's okay. But somehow, if we keep restricting stuff in Cuba now after 55 years, it's going to somehow change, and their power is going to fall, and that has not happened. So why do we feel? And it's only because of those hardliners that are in South Florida that they know that are voting for the GOP, and it all comes back to politics again, and has nothing to do with really helping out the people that live there. It's not helping out anything else. Yes, I understand the idea of like, oh, if we give them tourism money, then it's just enriching the government, which, yes, to some degree it is, but it's also having people communicate with everyday people on the ground there and seeing our way of life and how it works compared to theirs. But by closing that off, those everyday citizens are not seeing that, because everyday citizens are actually going to be able to get more money from tourists as
there
well.
would still be a lot of problems there, but
Of
I
course,
guess
but-
ideally Cuba would probably be a lot more like Puerto Rico, and it's not a
Or
racial
well,
statement, but
no, I'm
because
just
you
saying
just
any
think
other
about the layout
country-
and the geography, the sort of the makeup of the
any other country in the Caribbean that just has that open travel, and it just seems ridiculous to move again. You're moving backwards instead of forwards. And Raul Castro's already said he's going to step down in 2018, so there will be a new president. That'll be the first time that it will not be one of the Castro brothers since they took over.
They don't
in
have any more
59.
brothers or their cousins or anything. Like, we should check to make
everyone's-
sure that it's like, oh, it won't be a Castro brother.
No,
wink,
they
wink.
have a lot of family, but they're all older
Maybe
now.
they'll take.
He's
maybe
88.
we can have like Joaquin Castro, and then we can have like really Americanize him down there.
Exactly.
I would welcome Joaquin. Go ahead.
He's
He's the
representative
Texas?
from Texas.
Yes.
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 But to be fair, they have not actually said exactly what they're going to do and what reversals this will happen. They said that they were going to announce that in June when Trump visits Miami. But one of the things that they're thinking about is the wet foot, dry foot policy that Trump or that Obama overturned the last few days he was in office.
Why does President Trump have to schedule a planned visit to Miami? Isn't he in Florida every weekend anyway?
Right.
I mean, what's the difference? Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
We still have time left in the show, but we'll sort of start to wind down with not a particularly fun topic. We'll start with how the mayor of Portland wants a Trump-free speech rally canceled after the attack, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about. There were 2 people that were killed on a train, another injured, trying to stop someone from verbally attacking 2 Muslim women. And because we always talk about all of the terror attacks, we always talk about the suspects or the just flat out guilty person. So this person's name is Jeremy Joseph Christian, which I don't like because they always refer to him just as Christian in the art. And I'm like, look what he's doing to me. But he has a history of making extremist statements on social media.
You know what I also heard though?
What's that?
A lot of people are saying that he was a Trump supporter, or he is a product of Trump. And I have not verified this myself, but that he was actually a Jill Stein voter.
Wow.
And even I think, I don't know, for a time at least, or posted positive things about Bernie. So this was one of the situations where I could see that, yeah, there had been some slant in the way people presented this, that this was a product of Trump, but actually this guy was not a Trump supporter.
I think that
But
this
do
guy
not know
felt
that
this
for sure.
way, had
Yeah.
these beliefs regardless
of who he voted for.
Even if Trump had never run for
or-
president,
exactly.
This unfortunately, this incident probably still would have happened regardless of any of that.
Probably, you think, would have happened because of the Manchester attack.
No,
I'm saying
I
in
think
general,
I
if you
think
were to
in
take
general
everything out.
this guy, if somebody got in his face, I think that this is how he would respond, regardless of how any of
Yes.
this happened.
And-
I think this is someone that's hardwired to be like
Yeah,
this.
and I think it's politicized in any ways. It's just where it doesn't need to be politicized on who he voted for, whatever he did was wrong. I've just heard the fact that everyone's so quick to say, oh, this is a Islamic terrorist or Muslim doing this or that, and then they're not
actually
so
a
much
white
about
guy.
Yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, and they're not
We call
focusing
this-
on
we
homegrown
call-
terrorism,
Yeah, I know.
and they don't want to.
Just as much as, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but as much as Trump wanted Obama to say
Right.
Islamic, radical Muslim, I want Trump to say out loud,
Yes.
homegrown
Grown
terrorist.
And it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like they're so quick to judge us the other way around, but then when it's a white person that's doing the attack, they don't want to say anything. And the other thing that I was disappointed with is that the official Trump Twitter handle talked about
Right,
the
this
attack,
is the
but-
POTUS,
yes,
not at real Donald
not
Trump.
Donald Trump's actual one. Did he ever mention a word about that? And it goes back to saying like he obviously doesn't care because that was not him that actually wrote from the POTUS handle. So that was disappointing that he himself.
You think it was Dubkey on his way out?
Exactly.
He's just like, just one more and I'm
one
out
more
the
I can
door.
do.
Yeah.
But he himself did not make any comment about that, and that was disappointing to put it on the POTUS handle, not on his, where he has way more followers too than the POTUS handle.
People pay attention to that one. you
No,
know?
I mean,
Yeah.
and that because that's.
I
where
mean,
he
I'm
does
saying
his,
people pay attention to the at real Donald
exactly.
Trump.
And
That's the one where you're going to get maximum
you're going to get his
impact.
free form, middle of the night rants and everything, and that's where he's got twice the numbers, and
Well-
he didn't say something there, which would have been.
Unfortunately, so this takes the politics out of it. You hear that story, and then I think people, what's the unfortunate takeaway? don't get involved. You know, you hear that, but I mean, look what happened when they did get involved. This guy's just being an asshole to these two women, and just 3 guys try to like, hey man, that's not cool. And then look what happens. And I feel like people are going to take that away. You see something, say something. No, you see something, I'm just going to sit on the train and put my head down. And unfortunately, I think that's what ultimately is going to happen. You know, you don't know. I mean, you don't know when the next. I just remember his last name's Christian. This guy, you don't know when it's going to be another one of these guys. You know, just because somebody doesn't look like they could take out 3 guys, that doesn't mean they
want
have
to carry a taser.
I don't. Is that legal, counselor? I don't. I feel like a taser, is that something you can actually carry around, or does it depend on the state?
I don't know about
All right.
this.
Well, you could have a concealed taser
exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, Scott, do you feel like? And I don't even want to bring the personal level into it as to whether or not you or I would get involved. But do you feel like people are going to hear that and go like, yeah, just don't make trouble. Don't make trouble and don't get into trouble.
I think to some degree, but I also think on the other, when it's actually happening in the moment, people are going to go into that fight or flight mode immediately. So it's one thing to psychologically think about it and be like, oh, I don't want to be getting any trouble or anything. But I think at the actual moment, if someone's going after someone, your instincts are going to kick in and you're going to try to protect that person and take down that assailant.
Right. I mean, this guy could have done something to these 2 women that he was verbally insulting.
And
so
I think that
by not doing anything, something could happen to them.
Yeah. So I think in the moment, people are always going to have that kind of survival instinct, and that good Samaritans are always going to be out there. And I do hope that, because that is sad to think about, that people are now going to be less likely to help out their fellow human because of other crazy people, because that just gives them more power now to feel like they can go out and do things.
Maybe you don't even need a taser. Maybe you just need to walk around with a shovel.
Shovel.
And you can.
What was it? There was a movie where The Rock walked around with like a big piece of plywood, standing tall or walking tall or something. Let's just standing tall. Thank you, Steve. Steve knows his. Steve, did you see Baywatch over the weekend? You sound like no, I'm just teasing. My friend Lauren Lagrasso's in the booth, and she actually wanted to know something we have not talked about: the Kathy Griffin posing with a photograph of a decapitated President Trump. I don't know the context of it, but I know, like, well, that's just bad form.
Yeah.
You know, we get it. You're like, oh, I'm a celebrity on the D list. I'm so outrageous. But we get it. People don't like him. And, you know, I remember the makers of Game of Thrones had to digitally alter, so they had, like, a George Bush head, like, on a pike in an early episode.
I know.
You know what this makes me think of? Our friends from
the guys based in LA. Yeah.
And that they are all for free speech, and that is it's
a good question.
Expression of free speech.
Do they think
inciting,
whether they agree with the politics behind it or not? She's a comedian. She thought this was funny. Are they okay with her doing it?
The one guy I'm sure
Jeffrey
is a comedian, and
well, they both are. But
part
Jeffrey,
of why
I think,
he's so passionate about free speech is because he was trying to do these shows at clubs that were telling him what he couldn't say. So I think the conservative voice that sometimes appears on our show would say, leave her alone. That is her right. I mean, I can't think of any of the exceptions applying here. It doesn't incite violence.
Sure. No, look, I understand what you're saying.
I understand, too.
And I obviously am a proponent for the idea of letting comedians fail. Let them say things that are in bad taste and people don't respond well to it. And then that's where you kind of learn. This is something that she should have known how this would be responded. And look, people are talking about Kathy Griffin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think she did it to be able to get herself out there. So
whatever you think about Ann Coulter, the one thing she's really good at is that she always knows how to time the things that people get outraged about.
Yeah. When she said
when she said that John Edwards has a bumper sticker that says "Ask me about my dead son," she had a book coming out very shortly thereafter.
Right.
Everybody talked about her just long enough to forget why they were talking about her by a book. Now, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say our friend Drexel Hurd. He's got me signed up to go to Politicon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need to sign up for that too.
At the end of July. Yeah. Do you know who's speaking there?
Is Ann Coulter speaking there?
That was brought to my attention, and I nearly.
I mean,
what did I sign myself up for?
I don't know, but the thing that will probably get lost in that is that she can be very funny, but what she says that is supposed to be serious.
Is she a comedian?
No, but she has a sense of humor that people I think don't realize. You know, because you get such a violent reaction.
Well, and also
when you think of her.
and she's trying to get the attention, and that's what Kathy Griffin's doing. I wasn't a big fan when people were doing that to Obama, and so it would be wrong of me to say, okay, well, it's okay with Trump. But I get why she's doing it. Would I do it? No, but.
No, and that's
I think it should be right. If you're going to say free speech, and it should happen. I didn't like when they're doing the noose hangings of Obama and other things like that when he was president. So, but I do think, like you're saying, it's part of the free speech. And she's doing it for attention because now she's doing it. People are talking about the same thing with Ann Coulter. She'll say outrageous things because people talk about it.
Giving them exactly what
right,
they
and
want.
That's what Ann Coulter does too. It's the same thing.
And it's a great point to find out what our friends at Based in LA think. And while we don't have them scheduled to come in the next couple of weeks, I would like to have this be part of a future conversation. Although we're supposed to only talk to them about healthcare because that's what we said last time. Because if you remember, we like talked about it for like 3 minutes and we ran out. Like, all right, but. This is something that I'd like to know, and I'd like to know what everybody watching and listening thinks. You can tweet us at Trump Report ABTV, and I appreciate Lauren bringing that up to make sure that we knew. But that's the bottom line for me is, I have a pretty high threshold for things that are funny.
Yeah.
And I again, you don't need to know the context. She's holding a severed head, and then it's like, I know that she must think that that's funny, or that she thinks someone in her little bubble
she's
will
being
think it's
edgy.
funny.
Yeah, and she's gonna be edgy and be like, "Look, I can do what I want."
And I would just rather never talk about it again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, until she does it again. If she does something like this again, then maybe we're gonna have to talk about it. But
I realize it's funny for me to be a host on a show where we talk about politics and then say, well, you know what, I'm not going to talk about it. But in a way, that's my speech about it. Is
right,
to not
it's
talk
just
about it.
that by talking about it, you're giving her exactly what she wants. And I
wants.
can't wait to think what you think of Ann Coulter when she speaks at Politicon.
I'll let you know.
You can Periscope from it, just your reaction.
Is that still a thing?
It's still there.
I've never. Isn't it scope?
But you can do that longer than like an Instagram video. So that's why I said Periscope. I know it just makes me sound old from
You're
2015.
Like
I'm so 2015. Anyway, and we're all 2015 here. That's how we roll. But anyway, thanks to everybody in the chat. Simpler times.
It was. Oh,
anyway, thanks to everybody who joined us at the earlier time. Now, next week we'll be back at our regular time, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. But Scott will be on Alaska time, whatever that is. So you will not be with us.
Not be here
but
next week.
our friend Brooke will be with us, and Chelsea will be here. Yeah. So, Scott, we won't miss you. No,
you won't.
of course we will. It was just a joke.
Can you bring home a glacier for me?
Well,
yes, I'll bring one home.
Thank you.
Just put it in the overhead.
That's I want to go to Alaska to see the glaciers before they're gone.
Before they're gone forever.
It's pretty cool, actually. I took a cruise there, and you can see the little bits falling off of it, and it makes a noise that you didn't think that it would. So that's the sound of glaciers dying. Anyway, but make sure that you follow us at Trump Report ABTV, and Scott Moore at SMan80, Chelsea Galicia at Chelsea Galicia. I'm Christian Bladt at Christian DMZ, and we will see you next Tuesday night at 7. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.